Now this question is on the topic of chemical calculations, but before we go into solving this question, there are a few terms that we need to look at first. The first term is hydrocarbon. Now as the name suggests, a hydrocarbon is a compound that contains only carbon and hydrogen, no other atoms. Okay, the second term that we need to look at would be combustion. When a substance undergoes combustion, essentially it means that it's reacting with oxygen. Alright, so in this question, a gaseous hydrocarbon undergoes combustion, and since we do not know the exact molecular formula of the hydrocarbon, we can actually represent it in terms of X and Y. Alright, so CXHY, we know that it only contains carbon and hydrogen. When it undergoes combustion, it means that it reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. This is given in the question. Now, in order to use this equation, we must first balance it. Alright, so how do we balance this equation is that we have to balance it in terms of X and Y. Okay, now let's look at carbon atoms first. Carbon atoms, we have X carbon atoms on the left, we have one carbon atom on the right. So in order to balance it, we need to put an X in front of CO2 so that our carbon atoms are balanced. Now if we look at hydrogen next, we have Y hydrogen on the left, we have two hydrogens on the right. So in order to balance hydrogen, again in terms of algebra, we will need to put a Y over 2. Okay, now by balancing for oxygen, we can actually find out what coefficient to put in front of oxygen, but for the purpose of this question there's no need, so I'm not going to show you, but at the very end of the explanation I will tell you what is the coefficient in front of oxygen. Okay, next let's look at what other data that are given in the question. We were told that 1 centimeter cube of the hydrocarbon reacts with 4 centimeter cube of oxygen to produce 3 centimeter cube of carbon dioxide. Now by this time I hope you have already realized that all of the substances that are mentioned are gases. Right, so if they are all gases, we can use Avogadro's relation, meaning volume ratio equals to molar ratio. Right, so what it essentially means is that 1 mole of your hydrocarbon will react with 4 moles of oxygen to form 3 moles of carbon dioxide. Now by just comparing the molar ratio, I hope you can see that number of moles of CO2 over number of moles of CXHY is actually X over 1, and from the numbers given in the question, the ratio between your carbon dioxide and your hydrocarbon is 3 over 1. So with that we can find out that X equals to 3. Okay, now we need to solve for Y. How do we solve for Y? After finding out that X equals to 3, that means that CO2 contributed 6 oxygen atoms. Okay, because there are 3 moles of CO2, it contributed 6 oxygen atoms, and the question tells you that they require 4 oxygen molecules, meaning you have 8 oxygen atoms over here. Alright, so to balance for oxygen atoms, that means that 2 oxygen atoms must come from water. And in order to have 2 oxygen atoms from water, that tells you that Y over 2 must be equals to 2. Alright, and that means that Y must be equals to 4. Alright, so once we have solved for X and Y, it tells you that the formula of the hydrocarbon is C3H4. Okay, now as mentioned earlier, if you try to balance oxygen atoms in terms of X and Y, you will find that the coefficient, that means that the thing that comes before oxygen is actually x plus y over 4. Alright, so this is the coefficient for oxygen. Alright, so if you were to memorize this, in fact you can solve this question even easier, because x plus y over 4 equals to 4. Right, this is given in the question, and then we have already found out that x equals to 3, so y actually is equals to 4.